Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of Milanistas 360 with my two very clever and outstanding co-hosts. We have Nico on my, if you can see on the screen here, on my left, and Nathan on my right. So yeah, we have another episode, and before we get things going, I do want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into last week's episode. It was great to all the viewers and all the listeners who caught that one with Uncle Sharma. I thought it's very engaging and I guess very insightful to speak to a supporter of a team that is really looking to win the second star before us. Unfortunately, however, we live our lives and we move on. And here in everything about Milan we're talking about our successes, and we've had one quite recently. So yeah, that'd be a nice thing. So Nico, yeah, how is your feeling about this week and handling the international break?
That's actually a good break. I think we all need a break from our club. Did catch the couple games, called the Brazil game, the U.S. game versus Jamaica, and I do plan on catching the Mexico-U.S. game tonight
Okay,
as
very
well.
interesting games. How about you, Nathan? Also in the same time zone. Yeah, catching up with the other games.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've actually been able to wake up a bit earlier and watch some of the youth Italy games. So that's been exciting to watch. You don't really get to watch those guys too often.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, unfortunately for me, I didn't manage to catch those games. I guess not too passionate about international football unless it's about some big tournaments. So yeah, but yeah, going back to Milan, and for all those who are tuning in, just a reminder: please like and subscribe, and also you can catch us on our other socials. For example, this is streaming towards Twitter, and also you'll be able to find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So for today's episode, it's going to be something that is very special. We don't have Shane and John, so yeah, we have quite a big team with amazing content as well. And I think the highlight for today's episode and something that will feature very regularly as Nico's with us is about the defensive side and the defensive dynamo, talking everything about tactics uh, in football. So, Nico, where shall we begin with?
Let's kick off with putting up season one for the fans out there, for the followers. Give them a little preview of season one.
All right, here
All
we have
right.
season one, guys.
That's right. So this is pretty exciting stuff. Season one's be dropping soon on Milenistas 360. That's gonna be some really excellent content, really fun stuff. First one is new versions of Fugly Defensive X. That's gonna be a bi-weekly show, taking Fugly tweets out there, X's from various fans on X on talking about for example, Maguire is the best defender ever in the EPL, things like that. That's gonna be a fun light show. Then when you get into some more serious topics, some more passionate topics of mine, first episodes of Unveiled the Goats of Football. The first episode is gonna be about Franz Beckenbauer, who recently passed away, one of the best defenders ever to play the game. Second episode of Legends Unveiled, the Goats of Football. It's going to be focusing on this one South American player who's relatively doesn't get the hype as Maldini and Baresi and Beckenbauer. Elias Figueroa, he was a Chilean center back, excellent player during his time. Then we're going to drop in a special episode. We'll take a different take. It's going to be the 10 worst defenders in football today. And then the last episode of season one is going to be another special episode. It's going to be my top under 23 defenders with special guests. So make sure you tune in for those shows.
Oh, that's great, Nico. Yeah, for those who are listening, can you tell us where we can find your other socials and where you are?
You can find me on Twitter as well and Instagram. Just type in Defensive Dynamo podcast. I'll be right there.
Cool, that's great. So, yeah, in terms of the where would you like us to really? cover
So
next in terms of?
let's drop in the X's, the tweets that I found recently. Let's get into that. All right, let's tune in some music. So, okay. So this past week came across some really interesting tweets. The first one, let me pull up the screen here. There we go. I need to pull this down. Hold on, fellas, because I can't see the first tweet. Hold on there. Okay.
Is it better?
No, I'm trying to. The first one I got on the left side. There's a little bit technical issues. I see it. I see still our graphics on the left side. I can't see the first tweet.
Do you want us to read it?
It's Yeah, so it's what's going on is I'm seeing the cameras here on the left side. I'm seeing all four cameras are faces. And I don't see the tweets. And I'm trying to figure
It's
this
okay. We'll
out. Yeah,
yeah.
read the first
mention-
tweet out. Go ahead. Please do. Oh, here we go. That's better. Whatever you did. Hold on. Hold on. Something. I just changed it. Hold on. Something just changed. Did you? All right, hold on. Sorry about that, everybody. Still trying a little bit difficulty. Okay, that's better. All right. Sorry about that. So the first one is from at Manoa11A. I'm guessing he replied to a tweet from EBL 2017. He's a big EPL supporter that I follow because he comes out with some really outrageous stuff. He said, Maguire is even better, more calm and composed, more physically dominant. No striker has ever get the best of him when it comes to duels. He's one of the best when it comes to duel winning, can switch to play, uses both feet. Maguire and Man City will be mentioned in the same breath as VVD. Okay, that's pretty funny. I mean, anybody that follows football knows that VVD, Virgil van Dijk from Liverpool, is one of the best defenders in the EPL history, right? And that's not just me saying it, but a lot of people out there, even former players. Fugly defensive X. Fellas, what do you think about this one? Usney, Nathan?
I think it's hilarious.
Is it? Yeah,
He
exactly.
forgot to mention that Maguire also has the most own goals I've ever seen from a defender, but we'll just leave that out.
Husney, I'd like to hear your take on this one.
Yeah, so Maguire is a name that really has become a name synonymous with banter, really, because of the mistakes that he's done. But I wouldn't just put it down to just Maguire, but if we see a lot of other defenders who've made mistakes, and let's face it, no matter how good you are, you still have that mistake in you, and sometimes those mistakes will cost you games. It's just that in Maguire's case, is that he came with very high price tag. I think from Leicester, so they brought him from Leicester, was it, or from?
Was he the most expensive defender?
Yeah,
At the
I don't
time
know
he
if it's from
was,
Leicester
yeah.
City or from another
Yeah.
club. But I remember that he had a very big price tag, and therefore anyone who comes with that sort of price tag has certain expectations, and this then ties back into fans and really what they think about expectations. That you pay that much, you should get a ready-made and world class. But then the mistakes started happening, and it kept on going, and it just became that sort of joke at Manchester United. It's bad enough when your opponents and rival fans joke about your players, but when your own supporters do it, then that's just a lot of fuel to the fire. So how can you support like a statement like this, right? But I mean, I'll try to view it from the eyes of fairness. Maguire in the English national team, he's not bad actually. He's not the same player as he is for Manchester United. But whether he will be in the same breath as Virgil van Dijk, I really don't think so. Virgil van Dijk is
Exactly.
definitely more accomplished, and he has the trophies to prove it.
Yeah. With Van Dyke is that they're placing Van Dyke up there with the best. I mean, that means he is competing with the likes of Ferdinand and guys like that. So who won Champions Leagues. So that's a big leap. That's a big leap to
Fellas,
put him up
when
there.
you have Jet, you have Stam coming out, one of the best players ever, one of the top center backs in EPL, right? Coming out and saying that he thinks VVD is one of the best ever. That says a lot for me right there. All right. That says a lot. I mean, for a former player that's considered up there with the top 10 center backs to come out and say Virgil van Dijk is the best in EPL history, you know, for me, that says it
How would
all.
you
All right, let's
how would you
go
compare
ahead.
him to Thiago Silva? Because he had a pretty good impact, and he has what, two Champions Leagues with Chelsea, or is it
I
one?
think
Maybe it's one.
there, well, Thiago's done
I
it
think
for a
it's
lot
one.
longer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Thiago's done it a lot longer too. I mean, he's close to pushing 40, I think, Thiago, and he's still performing at a high level. I mean, they're close. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about. I mean, everyone's gonna have their own opinion, depending what you like. I mean, some people like VVD's for his more being physical, right? He's a taller player, more imposing. But I think Thiago, the one advantage he has, he's a more intelligent player. That's where I think he has the edge on that.
I agree.
All
All
right,
right.
let's get into
So,
this. So EPL, sorry EPL fans, you're the main focus this week. You deserve it because you do kind of hype up your teams a little bit too much, especially in Champions League. All right, let's get to the second one. All right, second one goes to this one, EBL 2017. All right, I've picked on him in the past for good reason. So this is another. He's saying that EBL 2017. Luke Shaw is one of the best left backs in the world, if not the best. I don't know if he's trolling in this case, but there's no way Luke Shaw is one of the best left backs in the world. Maybe on his team. I mean, you got Theo Hernandez, you have Roberto Carlos, you have even the kid out of Girona, Grimaldi, who's putting up insane numbers this year. Yeah, this one is just another Fugly X. I like to see what my guests, Husney and Shane and Husney and Nathan have to say about this one. What your take, fellas?
go ahead, Nathan.
Um, I mean, Luke Shaw's not a bad player. I mean, he did have a good Euro, like one of the sub comments have on here, but the best in the world. I mean, Hernandez has to have a shout in that. You have
Yeah, of
Davies
course.
has to have a shout with that. Like those are the two in demand players right now. No one has said anything about Luke Shaw. But then we also have to think about the quality of players that are actually in the game right now, and there really aren't many actual true quality wingbacks. So maybe Luke Shaw's not far, but that just shows the quality of the game today.
Yeah, about Luke Shaw, I think this is the same. I can even say the same breath as Maguire. They're playing for a Manchester United team that is nowhere near what memories really serves as a really a standout team in football. Look at where they are in the standings and where they've been over the past few years. Luke Shaw, just like Maguire, is a symbol of that. I I agree with Nathan. Is that I wouldn't say he's bad, and I do remember his performances, especially when we played against Manchester United. He's, in my opinion, a very physical player, and He also has quite a bit of a temper. I just checked his stats. He has 6 yellow cards this season. I'm not saying that our players themselves have very few yellow cards, but in terms of the temperament, but the statistics speak for themselves. He's in a team that isn't doing that great. He doesn't have the goals or the assists to prove that he's outstanding. So really, what is it about this player? I agree, it's busted in that way. But do I remember him, and does he have a chance of really being outstanding? I think he has that within him. In some performances that I do remember in the Euros, Luke Shaw actually did quite all right. So Euros was it the World Cup? I remember he played quite okay. So not a bad player, but best in the world, definitely not. As
No,
Nathan
and
mentioned, we have much better players.
I don't see him as a dynamic left back. That's like the modern wing back, right? Left back is more dynamic, and Luke Shaw, I mean, he's physical, but he doesn't have that ability like Theo does, and even DeMarco to push the ball up and be dangerous, right? At all. All right, let's get into the last one. This is another EPL Fugly X. All right, this is at Chris KRS MLFC. I'm assuming he's another EPL fan. And Virgil van Dijk is the best defender in modern football. Well, this is not the worst one. The other two X's were completely busted and fugly and just hilarious. But the only reason I brought this up is because, yes, if we're talking like today's game, possibly, but in modern football, we're talking the last 20, 30 years maybe. It depends on what your take is. I don't consider him there. He's maybe top 5, but not the best defender. And I know Liverpool fans love him to death, and I'd love him too if I was a Liverpool fan. Well, best defender in modern football, sorry, but like I said, this is not the worst one. The other two by far were just insanely, just way out of content and just fugly. Gentlemen, what do you take on this one?
I agree. I think it's up to the interpretation what modern football is or when it actually started. But again, that's why I mentioned Thiago Silva because I mean, overall he has been a monster. Um, and then and if we're talking about just defenders as a whole, I mean, you still have guys like Philip Lahm that played such a long time at Bayern, who was phenomenal as well. So I don't know about the best defender in modern football history. I wouldn't say that.
Best center back, yeah, you could put him up there for sure. But we're talking
Yeah, center
about
back. Yeah, center back. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, he just said defender, so I'm just assuming I'm just going to take defenders across the back line as a whole.
you have to.
My take on it is that yes, he's. I wouldn't say just good. He can be amazing. I'm not going to really dwell on some mistakes. I do remember some games where he really got spun and all that. So he's had a bit of slip up. But in this recent times, he would be definitely a starter in any team. The reason being is that, yeah, as you've mentioned, how he fits into the system. He's also an attacking threat. Several goals to his name where he's sitting in the box waiting for that corner and he just heads it in, or even from the from a free kick. So the set pieces, he's valuable. So in that sense, well, definitely outstanding. I would even go as far to say is that maybe in the last 20 years, he could probably find a spot in any team. So he could really challenge for the spot. But yeah, like you guys have pointed out, if you look at the horizon over a few, just very few decades, like 1 or 2 decades, there's so many players there, so many great players there. Defensively, I wouldn't say he's the best, as what the tweet says, but definitely up there as being good or great given the team that he's performing in. I mean, if he was like thrown all the way back into the 90s with like Baresi, Maldini, forget it. Yeah, yeah, I don't think he's gonna survive there. But yeah, in these recent years, yeah, good,
Well,
definitely good.
even the like the early 2000s, like when there were a lot of super teams back then, like Man U had a big team, Chelsea had a big team, the Milans, the Juventus, Real Madrid, Barca. Everyone seemed to have a very, very, very good center back pairing. So it would be interesting to see if he could destabilize, like a Cannavaro or a Job Stam or Ferdinand or Vidic, or it'd be interesting if he would be able to come in like that.
Well, I think with Virgil van Dijk, I think for him he hit his peak a little bit later in his career than the other players, right? Like some of the greats, like the top. You're talking about the top three, four center backs. They hit their peak at a younger age, and that's one thing some people do. I guess when they talk about Virgil van Dijk, they say, well, he started his career a little bit later. He didn't start winning championships and wasn't considered the best until, you know, when he hit Liverpool, right? When he went to Liverpool. Before that, he was kind of not unknown, but he made his name with Klopp. But yeah, I would agree. It would be interesting, like I said, but to see him if he would pair up with how he'd pair up with like Cannavaro, those players. But I think overall for today's game, he fits in perfectly, right? And he's got the pace, and he showed it the other day too when he was against who was it? Was it with Holland against Man City when they had played? There was a moment when he was 1v1 against Holland, and Holland was coming at him, and that's pretty scary seeing Holland coming at you with the ball driving with that frame at that size. And there was a moment Virgil van Dijk, instead of what he did, he did a different technique. He actually turned his back on Holland, to shift his weight, right? Which is something you're not taught to do as a defender. It's like a big no-no. But he was able to turn his back several times on Holland and still able to change Holland's shot when he took his shot. So that tells me, he has the ability, he's got the physical ability to turn his back that quick and still able to close down the opponent and actually change his shot or even deflect it. Because even people were saying online, like, oh, what was he doing? That's the wrong technique. That's a shitty technique. Listen, not everybody has the ability. Not every player is going to do the same thing. Perfect example. You guys watch boxing at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take Floyd Mayweather, for example, right? This is a perfect example. Floyd Mayweather, if you see him fight, all his career, he puts his hands down, and he which is another big, huge no-no. Like, basic boxing is to have your chin tucked in, hands up all times, like a classic fighter. But Floyd, he knows he's so fast, he's able to keep his hands down and bait you to come in, and he's going to hit you. So it's kind of the same thing with Virgil van Dijk. He has the ability to turn his back on a player like Holland and still able to get to close down on him on time, which is like unreal to me. Because if any other defender in today, like other center backs, couldn't do that, because they're not going to have the chance to change that pace quick enough to do it. They're going to get caught. They're going to get put on their skates, and they're going to maybe give up a goal. So, yeah, that's.
Do you think that's because Holland isn't the most technical striker? Like, do you think
No, but
Van Dijk would do something like that to? Well, I'll just stick with EPL because that's where they are with someone like Thierry Henry.
Henry's got pace, man. He couldn't. No, I don't think he would do it with Henry. No, he's too smart of a defender, of a player. Because the minute he would turn his back on Henry, Henry would just take it to him. He would he would beat him to the punch, for sure.
This is why. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Nathan.
I was just saying this is why I have such a problem when people say, you know, modern players are like the best. And it's like, if you weren't around in the 90s and early 2000s, you don't realize how good the players actually were back then. And compare it to now to where you don't really have, like, every team used to have at least 5 to 6 players who could decide a game on their own. And now you don't really have that except for like maybe like City has like a bunch of players or Madrid. So it's always difficult to say what a player could actually do. So when you say the best defender in modern football history, it's like, well, if we go 10 years, the past 10 years, yeah. Maybe the past 15 years, yeah. But when you go further than that, you start getting into the realms of like Sergio Ramos, who has been at the top for a long time, and he's scored important goals in Champions League finals. He's won a World Cup as well too. So it's like, you got to specify like a time frame.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if he would have said maybe like, hey, in the last 6 years, 10 years, sure. Um, but so let me ask you this: out of all these three, let's pick the worst one or the funniest one.
It's got to
I
be the
mean,
first one.
Yeah,
the
the first
first
one,
one for
definitely the
sure.
first one.
Yeah, Maguire. I mean, like I said, EPL fans, if you're listening to the show afterwards, sorry that we picked on you, that I picked on you today, but diversely so. You do hype up your clubs a lot in your league a lot, which is great. I wish Serie A fans would do that. Honestly, we don't defend our league enough. We do tend to kind of choose our battles and pick up. We shit on other teams instead of supporting each other. It seems like EPL fans, they support each other to the fullest most of the time and talk about how great all their clubs are and that they're going to win every Champions League every year. And a mid-table team like Brighton would come into Serie A and win the Scudetto, which is nuts.
Yeah, well, the
um,
support for other teams, I truly commend it. Just to come back to Van Dijk, and I fully agree with what Nathan said, and it's something that I was thinking as well. Is that given enough of that horizon, look at players like Maldini and the greats of the early 2000s, who they had to come up against. You know, the real Ronaldo R9. If you take that
yeah,
as an example, so how does that compare to like I understand that Haaland is a good player, a great player at that, a goal scoring machine, but they are legends that we've seen in our lifetimes. Yeah, like
he's not a
R9.
legend. Virgil
Yeah,
van Dijk is not a legend. He's not there. He's for me. I have him in my top 15. He cracks the like number 15 of all time center backs,
yeah, but
which is
what?
still great. I mean, that's saying a lot. But
Yeah,
to crack the
I
top
agree, but
4 or 5,
I don't think he's been tested against the greatest attackers in recent history as well.
it's not his fault. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's something he
Right.
can't control. You know.
So this is why I would put him as the best in modern. Had the horizon of modern be maybe in the past 5 years. And to back that up, I was also looking in terms of the remembering the statistics of the Champions League finals. So Virgil van Dijk has played several Champions League finals, and he's lost to Real Madrid. I think two of them, right? 2018, and I think that was
Yeah, that was the last one. The last one was a couple years ago. They
yeah.
lost that.
So he played in those finals as well. So for
Yes.
him to be truly the best defender, I'm sorry, Liverpool had to win those games.
Yeah,
Not
I
entirely
agree.
his fault, but the team had to
No,
win those
I mean,
games.
listen, as a defender, how much can you get? How much can you control of the outcome of the game at the end of the day? It's
And
tough.
not only that, but again, going back to like the Maldini and Ronaldo days, these guys were talking so highly of each other at that point in their career while they were still playing. You don't have any, like, you don't have like Messi or Ronaldo coming out and saying, "Man, Van Dijk was just unplayable. Like, I was so scared of playing against him." You don't have things like that. Ronaldo came out and would say, like, "Yeah, man, Maldini, that guy, Jesus." Maldini was come out and say, "Man, every time." I saw an interview with Ferdinand, and he was saying when he had to play against Ronaldo later on in his career, like after the injuries, he was still good. Ferdinand was saying, I used to, I couldn't even go to sleep because I was thinking like, this is just going to be impossible to stop this guy. There aren't any interviews like that with Van Dijk. Like that speaks volumes as well.
I agree. I mean, was it too, the R9 of Ronaldo of Inter, you know, when he was up against Maldini and Nesta? I mean, even the games that I've watched the highlights and the past games, what like to compare those kind of like situations, those duels, right? And that's like iconic stuff. I mean, because it goes both ways. Like they did credit Maldini and Nesta for being really tough defenders and going. But even Maldini came out and said, "Man, for me, Ronaldo was the toughest opponent. Like he had nightmares thinking about going up against him." I mean, like you said, Nathan, you don't hear that in today's game on both sides, right? You don't hear anybody saying, "Wow, I was scared of this player," or "He gives me, he's the toughest player to play against."
But it's more than that. I think the world of social media has also amplified certain players' their abilities. So if you see them have a good game or they have a good play, you're probably gonna see a highlight reel of that for like in your
Sure,
social
that's a
media for the
big,
next like
of
2 or 3
Yeah.
course.
weeks. But for the legends of, can I say, our time, being that maybe in the early 2000s, we don't have those reels anymore, right? Those aren't popping up on our social media that often anymore. You had to watch those games. You had to see the dedicated highlight on the news. So it's a different world.
I mean, there's a few on Instagram, a few accounts that do highlight those that era of football for us, but they're not as popular as the for the newer generation as the other accounts. I would say they're not really popular with the newer generation of fans.
Or is
So
that the
like you
FIFA
said, like
generation?
yeah,
Are we
we're
that
we're we're,
generation as
we're,
well?
we're right there. We're a different time. These kids, they'll rather just follow that one, you know, influencer like Speed and see what he's doing on next on his accounts and stuff like that. It's just different times.
All right, Nico. So we have another set of
Let's do it.
tweets here.
Yeah. All right. So let's pop in the music again and let's get to it. All right. Here we go. All right. So there we go. This is more EPL. Fugly X. This is at ___ WF. John Terry is the best defender football has ever seen. John Terry was great. All right. But again, if football has ever seen, if he would have said maybe in the EPL or I don't know anything else, but even EPL fans don't even consider John. A lot of the EPL fans, even EPL media, don't consider John Terry the best. They put him in, they put other players ahead of him a little bit, but John Terry the best ever. That's to me, that's saying that's a little bit too much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, John Terry was good, uh, but the best. So we're like it's like in England. If in England they really, like you said, they really back their
What they
players
do.
to the fullest. Like it doesn't matter what shrooms they've taken, they back them. They back them all the way. So I mean, it's commendable, I guess.
Well, even the fans, but even the their pundits, right? Ex
Yeah.
players who go on these shows, they do the same thing, and they have such a big influence with all the followers and like all the backing. I don't know if it's like it's something ingrained into that culture or what, but it just seems that everybody backs up their teams, their players to like their gods, because
Do
just
you
because
remember?
they invented the game of football, I guess.
Do you remember what they used to call Wayne Rooney when he was at his height?
I can't
No.
remember.
What do they call him?
And I'm not making this up. They were the media were calling him the White Pele. I am not making this up. I am not
Wayne
making
Rooney
this
was a
up.
nice player. He was nice, but he wasn't even the star of his own team. When
They
they,
called him, this is when they were first coining the golden generation, and they called Wayne Rooney the White Pele.
I can't
like
believe they
White
did,
Hope.
but yeah, I mean,
I swear they did.
fans
Yeah.
that like to put labels on things, and I came across a post of Hauger. You guys remember Hauger, yeah, one of our former players. So this particular account, at that time, he managed to capture a comment of someone referring to Hauger as the Norwegian Kaka. So, so at the time he joined us. So because I guess in terms of his entry to the team, there might be a bit of similarities because Kaka, yeah, he did come in quite young. But yeah, the labels that fans put on players, I think it's in a way destroying the image. But yeah, White Pele,
A little bit.
definitely don't agree with that. But I have to say, and I would rate Wayne Rooney actually quite highly. He was quite a prolific striker in his heyday.
Do you guys
All right, let's
remember
go.
when we played Hauge in the Europa League? He destroyed us,
Yeah, he did. Yes,
and
he really tore us apart.
I watched when we were first like kind of getting linked with him. I was watching the what was it, the Norwegian league, and with Bodo Glint, and he was really good. Pioli killed that player. He's
He's back
literally
with
like,
Bodo Glimt, right?
yeah, yeah, he is, and I mean, he's just like a shell of himself now. Like we killed that kid. That's just really sad. We completely killed him.
Pioli, the dream killer. That's what I call him. The career killer.
That might be interesting. Yeah, just interesting heads up towards a potential future segment about reliving the past and seeing where some of our former players have actually what they've gone on to do. That would have been quite interesting. Hauger is another interesting name. Rebic, who you have to admit, in his at his peak, he was something else. Yeah. So now it's completely like washed out. Besiktas, I think I don't know whether they've gotten rid of him or really want to get rid of him. So he has some disciplinary problems, which he had when he was still with us, to be fair. But yeah, some players in the league, and I guess maybe this goes on to the context about do we then support some of our former players? Yeah, maybe a bit of divided opinions about that. But we've had some really good players at some of the times. Hauge, Rebic. I still remember Hauge for some of his goals in the Europa League. I remember the
He
equalizer he
was.
made.
It was interesting how we saw how Rebic at the end of last season just kind of gave up. He just became he became like sort of like a cancer in the locker room. Like
Yeah,
he
mentally, I
just I don't
think
know if he
he's after
did.
that injury. Yeah, so injuries, from what I can see, and I've never really believed it until I saw it, happening during our games. Injuries completely destroy players. Yeah, Rebic, one of them. Calabria after his injury. Benacer, maybe time will tell, but yeah, I think it's maybe not the exact same Benacer as before he got injured for a
Isn't
real
he
time.
hurt again? Wasn't there's something that came out that he hurt himself
Yeah,
again?
Yeah.
yeah.
So he came back early, I think, from Algeria training camp.
Yeah, it'd be
And
interesting.
Kier before his injury, I think he was still quite good. So yeah, we have that record to go with this. So Nico, who is this person mentioned in your
Well,
list?
I had to do so I had to do some research on this one. I was like Ram Van Rav Van Denberg. I was like, what is this? Some kind of he's making a name up. Is he making fun of another player? So Van Dirk, he's a professional player, Dutch professional player, who plays center back and right back for a team EFL in the Champions Club Middlesbrough. So he plays in the Champions Club of EFL. And this Boro underscore memories. This is the first time I've seen one of his tweets or their tweets. Um, so he came out. Let's clue his music, and Rav Van Derb is the best defender in the history of the game of football. I'm hoping this is some kind of troll job, because I mean, to say somebody who plays in the Champions in the EFL is the best defender in the history of the game, I'm guessing they did it for. I hope they did it for just to get people to react and to get reactions, because
Definite troll. Definite troll.
or I don't know what this person's on. I have no idea what's going on in their lives, but
Hey man, those English shrooms, bro, they're getting to them.
they're pretty strong stuff. Maybe it's the beer there. I don't know. It's that the pints of beer that they drink at the pub. I couldn't tell you. Or the fish and chips, maybe.
But we
And
can
it's funny they
compare, right?
react.
Nico. So we've had players in our team. We still do. Yeah, Tomori. He's actually done quite a interesting take about English football versus Italian football, because he was mentioned during one of his interviews, where he did say is that in Italy it's a lot more tactical and all that. So we've seen the difference about how you could say, well, English defenders can actually adapt to the Italian game. I mean, what is your take on that?
The same thing. I mean, even Weston McKennie said the same thing when he came over to Juve recently, because he played in England as well. He couldn't believe. He said his comment was when he was in over in England, they just ran around with just like without a purpose sometimes. They just it's all about pace, running around the pitch, And he noticed once he went to Juve, he's like, everything is more tactical. You have to be more mindful what's happening on the field. So, and we see it with the games too. We see how, if you see an Italian game, a Serie A game, and then right after that you switch it to a EPL game, you see how the game is played, and it's like night and day. I mean, I guess that's the reason why the EPL is so popular with general fans, just people who are not, I'm not saying passionate because I don't want to say it that way, but for people just tuning in maybe for the first time to football, or they're new to football, they're going to be attracted to that high pace, high scoring games.
I have an interesting comment to that. I'll let you finish though.
Yeah, but then when you watch a game, Lazio, or one of Serie A games, and it's 1-0, and they're playing low block, and which is, for me, that's attractive, because it takes a lot of discipline to play that style of game for 90 plus minutes, to be that discipline and on defense, right, for all that time, for a whole game, and not give up any goals. But for the average fan, they're like, dude, this is boring. Why am I tuning into this shit? I'm going to go back to watching Man City and Liverpool light it up and score 5 goals.
All right, Nathan, your take?
Going back to like EPL players coming to Serie A, I think it really depends on what team they go to, and I think it really helps that a lot of them do have some sort of pace because at the very least they can make up for their lack of tactical knowledge with physical presence. And growing up, whenever we would play against, because I'm in Houston, so we play against some of the Hispanic kids who are smaller than us, but you just can't catch them because they're so quick. We were t- we were brought up with, if someone is that much more skillful than you, our coach would say, "Hey, go let them know that you're here," and we would just go take them out and let them physically know that it, it's going to be a tough game, even if you're more skillful. So Tomori coming to Italy, it helps that he's so fast because if you notice at first his one-on-one defending was horrible, but he's getting better at it. So that's a good thing.
Well, you definitely
But
need pace. You need a little bit of both, right, to be
yeah,
that complete player, for
right. So
sure.
it really helps that he's fast. In terms of what you were saying about when like the casual fan would like to see like goals and stuff, I think the last 2 years, I want to say, Italy has actually had more goals per game than England. And if you remember when the EPL was first starting to rise, their whole gimmick was, look how excited we are, look how many goals we score. And you would think Serie A would capitalize on that and broadcast that same thing to get more viewers. But it was just like radio silence. Just because in Italy, if you score too many goals, it's because your defense is trash. And for
True.
the
Yeah.
football purists, we like to see, you know, we like to see more structure and defense. So it's just interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, you're right about the goals, and I think it's just the way it's presented. Even on the pitch, you see the difference in, like, I guess, pace, right? I think that's what
Yeah.
people, they see the pace, like, well, it's got to be a lot of goals. And I guess it's, they see a game in Serie A, they're like, well, they're playing a little bit too slow, they're holding on to the ball, even though they might be more goals scored, especially this season, right? With Inter scoring, outrageous goals this year. I think as a whole, right? If you take the whole league, it's not. Um, there's that difference at the end of the day, you know.
Can I
I
offer
told my
interesting?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh, can I ask something to both of you? It's something that has been in my mind for quite a while. So our team has a significant number of players that have played in the EPL or have recently, very recently have come from the EPL. So my personal assessment is that maybe we are the most English team in that sense, yeah, in terms of the players that we have and what they've done. Do you think this is an accurate measure if an EPL team, looking at how we play and how our results have been, do you think this is an accurate measure of how an EPL team will actually perform in our league? What are your thoughts about that?
You want to take this, Nathan, first?
Yeah, I can go first. We already know my viewpoint on this. We are the Italian version of the EPL team. Um, yeah, we give up lots of goals, and I think an EPL team would come in and they would get scored on at a ridiculous rate. Depending on how big the team is, they might be in the top four. But if we were to get like a mid-table team, Jesus Christ, man, they'd be conceding goals left and right.
Yeah, we've touched on this before in previous episodes. I think it's after we played Chelsea in the Champions League. I think management took notice and they realized, hey, we don't have the same pace and power as these English teams. And they had this thing in mind where they wanted to put a project, they wanted to build that kind of team. So that's why we got the players that we got. all those attacking midfielders, and getting Pulisic and Loftus Cheeks. And you see with our stats, I mean, well, you can see the way we play. I mean, Pioli's come out in previous interviews saying we don't play defense or something like that, which is, or we don't like playing defense. It didn't come out for the English fans, but for the Italian fans, it was said. And then you look at our stats, or how many goals we give up in open play, and how many quality shots we give up on open play. It's up there with like the EPL teams. But the difference is, some of those EPL teams can afford to play like that, like Liverpool, like Man City, like Arsenal, because they can put up goals consistently. They have the players.
Yeah, okay. Nico might be a bit indisposed at the moment. But yeah, I completely agree. The the way that we are doing things, doing in the EPL way, maybe to a casual fan it might be quite entertaining. I can see the allure of that. Not making sure that if you were not a supporter of the club, that you just might want to tune in just to see what happens. Because yeah, our record has shown it that we've beat the best, well, except for Inter, for a very long time now. But we can also lose to the worst. So that that is an interesting way of playing football. And if you just wanted to see what's on television and you didn't support anything in particular, you will pick up a Milan game because of that reason. And
Yeah.
let's be fair, the same thing happens in Premier League as well. I would question a lot their consistency because they can very much lose to anyone, and that makes it all the more entertaining.
My friend, I have a friend that we were in the army together. He was one of my soldiers, and he was like, he's a betting member. He's a betting person, and he wanted to get into soccer, and I was like, okay. And he was like, I always hear about the EPL. They're the best, and I told him like, look, if you want to just see goals and people running around like headless chickens, watch the English league. But I told him if you want to learn the game, you need to watch Italy, Spain, and Germany. And he says, I'm so glad I listened to you because now I have a fundamental knowledge of formations and tactics and variety of how to play and things like that. So for any casual out there, stay away from the EPL. Just stay away.
I want to ask you,
Nathan,
Nathan. Go ahead,
go,
Nico.
go ahead, Hunty.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, Nathan, about your assessment about the Spanish league. I mean, had given a choice between, and depending on the game, of course, I wouldn't mind tuning into the Spanish league because I like the flow of their games. It's very quick, in my opinion, and in terms of their goals, it's something you could say maybe a highlight reel worthy. What is your opinion about the league?
See, because I've played for a number of years, when I view leagues, I break down what their actual style is. So, if I'm going to watch La Liga, it's because I understand I'm going to see a lot of one and two touch football, that which is, from an offensive side, that's how it's supposed to be played. Um, Close spaces, one, two touch, give and goes, things like that. So I like La Liga. Like from top to bottom, they all play pretty consistently uh, like that. So I think it's a good league to watch.
And to touch on that, I think La Liga, um, for the most part, they allow players to express themselves on the pitch, which it seems like overall the EPL, and it's you hear it all the time. The EPL, and it's probably maybe a cultural thing. They don't like players to express themselves on the pitch, to be creative, because you see it all the time. It's like you already know. And you see with some of the coaches that coach in the EPL, like for example, De Zerbi. It's well known that De Zerbi he pre-orchestrates his players on the build up. He tells them you have these two options when you get the ball, either pass it here or here, which is taking that creativeness from the player right away. That's why you don't see those magicians, those magic, like those creative midfielders in the EPL as much. Because the minute they get the ball, they're ready either going to be told where to go with the ball from the manager, they're in training, or two, if they try something different, they might get benched. All right. There's a few teams that do play a little bit more creative, but you already know where the ball's going. Is the minute the ball's going out to the wing, you know that ball's getting crossed 99% of the time. You can predict it. You're like, all right, they're going to get the ball in the wing. He's going to take a touch. And he's going to cross it into the middle. Instead of cutting it back, doing something else, trying to surprise the defender, trying maybe a trick move, something. You don't see that. But in Spanish leagues, you see that La Liga. Germany, too, as well. It's a little bit more not as predictive, especially with like coaches like Xavi Alonso and things like that. So for me personally, I enjoy watching other leagues besides the EPL because of that reason. And that's another reason why being here in Mexico now, I get a chance to watch South American football, all right, on ESPN. So I watch Brazilian League, I watch Argentina, or teams from Argentina as well. And you see a different flow of the game. You do see some players like, wow, man, like they're able to do some cool new things and like different tactics and things you might not see in Europe as much, which is really interesting.
You brought up a point about swinging the ball out to the wings, and it's always going to be a cross. The change from playing through the middle and playing to the wings was so drastic over the years. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, but we used to Milan. How many times at Milan did we send Kaká out to the wing so we can cross to Shevchenko or Inzaghi? Like everything was 1 and 2 touch passes in the middle. It wasn't so much like how we play now with Leao all the way on the wing and then trying to cross it into Giroud. That midfield play is really not there anymore for the most part.
Good. I don't think Pioli trusts or has a trust. We don't have the ability that one player in the midfield to do that, to have that. I mean, Ali on occasion does have that possesses the ability to get those balls in from the midfield, but that's far and few. I don't expect that from Tijani at all. He's got to work on his shooting first for the most part. Benny's not that player either. Even when we had Calabria, how many times did we pick on Calabria this last season? Instead of him going forward, he always had his back turned to goal, if you remember. So it's also having that player. You could say, okay, we can get that midfielder that has that ability. Is like, hey, I can get the ball through, and through 3 defenders and get it to my striker, or do something different, change the pace, or even take a player on, and cut through the midfields, and be dangerous. We don't have it. That's probably one of the reasons. And Pioli's preference too. I don't think Pioli is that kind of coach to teach that either.
Well, he had Diaz was able to actually get the ball and make those marauding runs in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and you see what he's doing in Madrid and he fits better in Spain because of that.
Yeah, he is very much a La Liga player.
For sure. Because even though he had that he could cut through, but how often did that happen in Syria? And there were other times where he would just get bullied off the ball.
Yeah, right. I was really pushing for Julian Brandt. I was really hoping we would get him because I think he's a very good cam.
Who's
I have a
that
question
player?
about.
Sure, go ahead. Zane.
Yeah, I have a question for Nico, and it's something that's always been on my mind, looking at how we
Sure.
play and the tactics that we employ. In your opinion, because you know the tactics and the game well, do you think our build up is very slow? Because many times when I see the transition and I see that at certain points of the game we actually have a numerical superiority in the attacking phase, but it seems to be okay. Let's slow it down. Then we start to back pass. It gives the opponent so much time for them to reassemble and essentially block the middle of the park. What's your view? I don't get that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't get it either. I think there was a game. I was on a live watch along with Fabio and a few other people from another channel, and we counted how many times we passed the ball back to Mike. It was, I think, overall it was like over 30, almost 30 times in the game. And listen, sometimes during a game, it's okay to hold on to the ball and get it to the midfield and pause the game. That's fine. That makes sense. You want to pause, maybe there's a reason behind it. But when you have, like you said, Husney, when you have advantage, you have numerical advantages, right? And there's still players, there are players still trying to backtrack and recover, and you're not taking advantage of that. I mean, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, waiting all the time, kicking the ball back to our center backs, recycling the ball every single time. Every single time. There's a time and a place to that. And we don't seem to know when to do it. We just do it just the sake of doing it, it seems like. For whatever reason. And it's frustrating as a fan, too. You're like, just get the ball up the field. You have Leal, you have Pulisic, you have players that can do things. Um, on 1v1s or maybe 1v2 situations. Just get it up the field and take your chances. And we've seen it where how many times in a game where if we could have scored a couple more goals in the Champions League game against when we were in the against Newcastle, we didn't take our chances and it bit us in the ass, right? So, yeah, I don't know what it is. It's something that Pioli doesn't. It seems like the players don't train for that during the week. It's not ingrained in their DNA. It's not ingrained in their brain to get it up the field when the time comes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. If you notice when we switch the ball, we never do like a full switch. We go player to player, and that I understand. Like the whole purpose of switching the field is to take advantage of the numbers on the other side. But when you switch the field by going player to player, you just end up in the same situation because the other team, like you said, can just they've already assessed themselves. So the way we switch the field is already just horrible. And then um, when we're actually up there, Liao and Pulisic, they really have no one to really pass to. Giroud is just he's a statue because of his age, of course. And uh, for as good as ROC has done this year, he is very much a bruiser in that position, and he needs room to actually get by players. So we d- we don't have like an actual cam that can take players on and interchange passes with anyone. And then of course you have to add on the fact that we play Pioli says we don't play a 5-0-5, so we play a 4-1-0-1-4, which is the same thing, but I don't want to upset Pioli, so that's what we play. And if you notice when Adley or Reindeers when they pass, there's no forward movement. So the person who gets the ball has their back towards goal, and the only thing they can do is pass back because the options that gave them the ball don't go forward. So if you don't make forward runs after you pass or go left or go right, and you just stand there, what can you do but go backwards? Leao can't take three people on every single game. We know Pulisic isn't built like that. He can do one on ones, but two on one. 3-on-1. He's not built like that. So, and we know ROC coming from the EPL. This is one of the things that we were talking about. Unless you're like on City or Arsenal or Liverpool, give and goes and 1-2s are done in long expansions. Like the passes are long, like 15-yard, 13, like 15, 20-yard passes. They're not 5-foot passes or 10-foot passes, give and goes like that. So ROC isn't built like that either. So, and when you look at when players come and support, so let's say Pulisic gets the ball, and who's supporting him that he can do give and go passes? He has no one. He literally has no one. So, and I point this out whenever we play. Look at the middle of the field. Where's the help coming from? And that explains why we always back pass all the time.
Yeah, and I my really one of my thoughts about how we've been doing it is that every year we try to make the team younger, which I get, making the team younger, but in terms of how that translates into the pitch, I'm not really quite seeing it because with a more useful team, we should play to their strengths. Yeah, a younger team should be able to run, we should have more speed, but it doesn't seem like that's our thing. But it should be our thing. Yeah, with a young squad, that should be our thing. We're quick. Whenever there's opportunity for a counter attack, we're there. But more often than not, it's not us. I mean, it's not to say that we haven't done it before. And I think this game, the one that recently took place, is an example about if we use a lot of those dashing runs, if we use a lot of the speed, the youth in terms of the players, we can get things done. So yeah, this is the Verona against Milan game. Sorry, just to recap it slightly for those who are listening to us or watching us. So this was the last game before the international break. Um, it triggered off really in terms of a Theo, excellent goal by Theo, by through you could say a lot of, can I say deflections? So he pushed it forward, hit a defender, came back to him, and he just kept going until he scored the goal. Then to Pulisic for the second goal, and we thought this pretty much in terms of the comfort level. But the story of Milan is that we can never keep a clean sheet. They knocked one back, and thanks to Chukwueze, he finally got his league goal. We managed to get a 3-1 over them. So yeah, just let's see. Nathan, what were your opinions about the game and how we played? Does that really tie into we should have done better, or pretty much this is a fair result?
Um, Against Verona, it's a fair result. Against a better team, we would be punished because we still give up not just the goal, but uh, we give up some pretty point blank chances to these teams. Um, we should beat Verona, I guess 3-1, 3-0. Like we should put 3 goals. So the positive I'm going to take from this was that we got 3 goals, which we don't really see that too often.
Okay, Nico, what were you? How do you assess
So
the
I,
game?
I had a couple. I actually took some notes on this game. Yeah, listen, we scored 3 goals. Great. You know, but on that, listen, like Nathan had said before, we do give up a lot of high quality shots, and I think that's one of the reasons why Mike looks like he's struggling. He's not making the saves that he's usually makes because you're giving up those kind of high quality shots, these banger of goals, and these shots without being, or either he's screened or there's no defender in front of him to like slow down the ball or change the direction of the ball. The keeper's not gonna have a really good chance of saving those shots, regardless how great you are. So on that goal from Noslin, right? That was like I think the 64th minute, yeah. Mike was screened by Gabi and Benny. So how are you gonna, as a keeper, supposed to take the right angle and anticipate where the ball is gonna go when you have 2 players screening you? I remember when I played keeper, I used to get pissed off, for a short time when I had my players in front of my face screening me. So imagine
You're a brave man.
it's like, what are you doing? Like, and this happens a lot. This has happened time and time again. throughout the season. This is like an ongoing theme with our team. All right. Yes, we're winning games. I get that. We're in second place. Great. Okay. But we shouldn't give up goals like this. Even there were other times too during the game where they had other opportunities as well, right? To score goals. I think there was a point where Gabia took poor positioning on one play. In the 90th minute, right, near the end of the game, where we were giving up too much time and space on the defense, all right? And I think Tomori had to make a run back in the box, all right? And just, I think, and block the game, to block the shot. And then Gabi he made a poor decision as well. We almost conceded a goal. And Mike had to make a good save. Do you remember that, guys? It was during late in the game, the 90th minute. Gabi got spun around. And if it wasn't for Mike, and we don't say this enough about him, he did make some really good saves in this game that saved us. If it wasn't for Mike, we would have given up another goal.
It almost injured him. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I know there's plenty of fans out there, other Milanista and casual fans that watch Milan saying, "Wow, they're in second place. They're going to qualify for the Champions League." But if you look at the overall performance of our games, defensively, because that's what I focus on, we're struggling. We have struggled the whole season with a ton of things, and I mean, and I've talked about it again and again and again. And we haven't corrected our issues. We haven't we haven't changed anything defensively. And at this point of the season, where we have, the team should be looking better defensively. We have a team of players that have been playing together for a long stretch of time, regardless of the injuries. And now that we have Tomori back, and we still have the same issues. We still have the same issues with set pieces where players are getting unmarked. And we talked about it last time. What are the reasons behind that? Right? It comes down to tactics, and Pioli does not care about defense. We're focusing too much offensively. Let's try to outscore the teams. And I can tell you right now, when we get back into Europa, we're playing Roma, April 11th, right? On the first leg. And Roma's changed a lot since, I know we've beaten Roma in the past. Roma's a completely different animal right now. You have De Rossi, he's got his troops motivated. They're playing for for him, right? They would die on they would do anything for that man. They would bleed on the pitch for him. And they're playing dynamic football. You have his center backs pushing up in the attack, getting involved in the attack, which is something we have not seen from a Roma team under Mourinho. You have the Bala playing good football. They're dangerous, and I can tell you, if we keep playing, if we don't get our defense set up right, all right, we're gonna give up goals against Roma, and there's a possibility we're gonna get knocked out from them. That's and it's going to be tough. I think a lot of fans are saying, well, we beat Roma in the past. No, this is a completely different beast. And if we do somehow find a way to get past Roma, and we play the likes of Liverpool, Bayern and any other team that's in the next after that, we're going to get smacked. It's going to look bad at that point. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I agree. I think we really, well, not everyone, but we really took for granted what Tonali and Kessie, or Tonali and Benny, really brought to our defense. No matter how good of a defenders you have, if there's no shield for them, you're eventually going to start leaking in goals, and the confidence is going to go down. As a whole, we just don't defend very well. Like teams get to our goal too easily, and that's a big problem. They not get to our goal through the wings. They get to our goal through the middle of the field, and that's a big problem. Like, how can we, a club with 7 Champions Leagues, allow teams like Verona to waltz down the middle of our field uncontested? Like, that's just insane to me. It really is insane to me. So our defense is just, they're just bombarded. Like, thank goodness, uh, you know, Gabi has come back from his loan like a possessed demon, and thank goodness, Tamori is back, because I mean, Jesus, our mids don't provide coverage, so we need our defenders to be like sharp, 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 sharp.
Yeah, we can't afford to make any mistakes. They can't afford any lapses at all. They need to be on point, focused throughout the whole game, like 90 minutes plus.
Yeah, like you said, Roma's completely different, and the
Different animal.
tangent with the Dybala and Lukaku is just gonna be, it's gonna be difficult. This is gonna be a really difficult game, I think.
Hosni, what's your take on the Roma matchup coming up
It's going to be different Roma. So had it been
for sure?
Marino's Roma, I would actually put my money on us winning all the time. Yeah? So I wouldn't really be too worried about it, regardless whether it's home or away. But De Rossi's Roma, even though they have largely the same players, he's managed to really get them revitalized. So even before De Rossi, Mourinho's era, they have quality players. So let's not shirk away from it. They have players who can really hurt us. The issues that I see in terms of our defense, the issues that I really have is that these problems are very much consistent. We see them from game to game. It's going to be the same mistake. Yeah, we're going to concede from the corner. We're going to concede from set pieces. It's going to be that confusion inside the box. We don't know why there are these one-on-one situations, and we are left to hope for a miracle in terms of why didn't that go in. That is what worries me when you got players who are very physical like Lukaku, Dybala, who can work up magic. So I would still put money on us to win, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I know they really want it because De Rossi is really. I think in terms of energizing team, he's done quite a bit for them. But let's see. Purely being out tactic is something that I'm also expecting him coming to his end. Maybe that's also another topic whether he's really at the end of his time in the club. But I yeah, we should win. We should win. We really have to.
Let me
But it's
pose
gonna
this
be
question
slog.
for both of you. If Pioli loses, if he get knocked out of Roma, do you think Pioli's going to keep his job?
Yeah, at this point, I don't think Pioli's going anywhere.
Oof.
Let me say this, and I said this last week. Yeah, so keeping Pioli is the ambition of the ownership. If keeping him says that everything is okay, then the ownership will want him to stay. But had this been Berlusconi's Milan, Pioli's gone. It's probably gone. So that's going to be a big difference. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays. I just said it also last week is that had this been the 17 other teams that we have in the league, they would be happy to be second place. They would happy to be second place. They would happy to be in the quarter or maybe with a good chance of getting to the semi or finals of the Europa League. But we are not those 17 other teams. We are historically the team challenging for Scudetto, for the Champions League, and this is the issue that I have with this ownership. We have settled into a standard B of football, whereas everyone is looking to actually upgrade. I don't want to talk about spending and all that, but this pretty much is it. With a good coach, and I think both of you can agree, with a good coach, we will probably get maybe another 20-30% out more out of our players in terms of correcting the mistakes and them maybe playing to their truest potential. I'll just take one very basic example. It's like Adley, he started quite a number of games, but this is not his first season in the club. So why are we seeing this Adley now? What was happening last season? Does it then make a difference? Then coming to this season is like, why does Scapia come back and all of a sudden become great when he didn't play that much for Valencia? Was it Valencia? Was I don't think it
Uh,
was Sevilla.
I think it
Valencia, I think.
was it, I thought it was Villarreal. Maybe it was
Oh,
Villarreal
Villarreal.
mostly.
Yeah, my
Yeah, I
bad.
think so.
Villarreal.
Yeah.
So why is it he come back with additional maybe 20-30% when he's been with us for years, by the way? Yeah, he's not a new player. So a lot of these questions really trickle back to purely what is his system, how much he trusts his players, what sort of standard we have. And okay, let me just add on to my little rant. We don't have a setup to handle the lower placed teams. For us, for Pioli system, it's always got to be his strongest lineup or nothing. Play anything else than a strong lineup, we are in such difficulty. It's insane. It's like we're playing like with the Primavera for a joke or something. Uh, he will stay because this ownership wants to keep the ambition as such. But as a fan, I don't really accept it. That's my short/long rant. Yeah, thanks Shane for viewing us. He's a question about Amrabat rumors. I didn't know we were linked to them, by the way. What have you guys heard?
Well, which one?
I
There's
didn't know
two of
either.
them, right? Is it? Aren't there two of them?
I didn't know there's two of them. Sofian
There's one
Amrabat,
that.
the star,
Oh,
he's in
Sophie.
with Manchester United, I think, right?
Okay,
Quite
because there's
recently, he
another one
joined
that
quite
plays.
recently.
There's another one that plays in Greece too. I think it's his
Oh, okay,
brother.
okay.
Yeah, which is he's actually a decent player too. They kind of similar profiles, similar players. Um, yeah, I guess I'll take this first for me. I mean, other rumors. I mean, how much do you want to take that? Believe in these rumors. But as a player, sure, he would bring some teeth to the team, which we need for sure. I've been saying this. We've been missing that bulldog, somebody in the midfield with some serious teeth to hurt opponents coming through.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is the first time I've heard about these rumors as well too. Um, I think a lot of us foresaw what was going to happen with this summer's market. All the players have all admitted that they're not really the best defensively. So, I mean, we kind of understood what was going to happen. As for Adley, he just had to reinvent himself. Like we don't really play with center mids, so it's kind of, I guess it was just difficult for him. So I think he was just forced to say, "Look, I'll play in the double pivot role just because I want to play, even if it's not my best position." And it turns out, I mean, he's better than Reindeer's there. So I mean, it's worked out for him.
Yeah, and on that point, Nathan, what we're seeing now is an utter failure of how we were prepared for the summer. If I'm sure you guys remember, and I hope all the fans out there remember, we were gearing up to be solidified into a 4-3-3. But how
Hmm.
have we? What have we done? Do whatever you want, yeah. So we've tried the 4-3-3 last season. We even had a 3-4-3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we
So
did try it. We tried the
yeah,
three-man defense against Inter, which actually was one of our better games because I think they only beat us like 1-0 or something like that.
only, yep, you have a point there.
Hey,
We'll
listen,
take
yeah,
that.
I'll take that too.
But that is a testament about how Pioli is managing this team. He brought in players, I think, to really support the 4-3-3. Then realizing that, hey, these guys can't play to my system. Now we're back into the 4-2-3-1. I don't understand for the life of me about what is now going on. Was a mistake made in summer or not? If you ask me, my opinion, yes, a mistake was made because we're not number one. Where after spending that money, you should somewhat put that as a yardstick. But what can I say? Yeah, I'm just a fan. I'm not ownership with ownership level ambitions.
But you know what? To your point, Husney, you just said we spent all that money and we should have been performing better. but you're gonna have fans for sure out there saying, "Well, all the injuries that we happened to us. So Pioli was shorthanded with his ability to have certain players on the pitch. That'll be one way to defend with the way the season has happened. So it turned out this year. But to that point too, even if you have all these injuries, you have all these kids. And I'm gonna hit this. I need to hit on this point really quick. You have players in the Primavera that you could pull up. He did pull him like he pulled up Shimix. He came up with Kamada for a game. You have Zanoli. You have all these other kids. We saw a couple appearances from Simic. We'll take him first. He played some decent games, better than Chow.
Scored a goal.
Scored a goal too. Seemed like he
right?
belonged there. He seemed like he belonged on the field, right? He seemed like he would have been a good fit for us as another option in center back. He doesn't get chosen to be on the Champions League roster, Europa roster for whatever reason. He chose Terrashano according to some sources over him, and he gets sent back to Primavera. You have Zanoli, another promising kid. Where's he? Why not the Clay? We play him. You have all these, and then so to me it's like you have all the reason for the Primavera for these kids to join a club because you want to be promoted to the first team eventually and give it a chance to play. You see it with other clubs. You see it with Real Madrid. They play young kids all the time. You're seeing Barcelona. They're playing a 17-year-old center back. And he played against Champions League, and he held his own against Osimhen, against Napoli. All right, they have a young kid, 16 years old, on the right side in Barcelona, balling out. We have talent too, but for whatever reason, is it an Italian thing or is it Pioli thing? He doesn't want to play youth players. He doesn't want to give them a chance. All right, and then. Why not? Why not give them a chance to see how they do? Especially now, since we're not playing for anything in Serie A. Not one thing. We're comfortably in second place, right? We're not pushing for anything. Why not give these kids a chance to play the last few games? Give the fans something to be excited about.
Yeah, I agree. When you, I kind of want to say it's more of a Italian mentality to not play the young kids. It really makes no sense because we have Camarda who is breaking records left and right. He's 16 and he's nowhere near the first team. And meanwhile, you have Endrick playing against England for the first team of Brazil and he scores. That is Camarda's direct competition. You have Yamin Yamal playing with Barcelona, 16 or 17 years old.
He's 16.
Same
Yeah.
16. He is the same slender, lanky build as Camarda. Camarda's probably a bit thicker than him. And Yamal is playing like almost every game. You have Makoko from Dortmund. What is he like 5'8", like 5'8", 5'9", or something like that? Small, quick little kid playing multiple games at 16 years old. One of the youngest debutants in German football history. And he's playing constantly. We know for a fact Liverpool does it in Champions Leagues because they did it against us and beat us with some of their Primavera players when we first got back to the Champions League.
In
So
fairness, Nathan, they didn't have anything to lose then during that game.
true, but how many games do we play where we're up 3-0 or so, and instead of putting in, uh, let's say who just got promoted, Elitu just got promoted. He's out. He's with the first team, and instead of putting him in a game, instead we'll put Reindeers or Adley as the substitute when we know these guys need breaks anyways, and Elitu's just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. So it's like I want these guys to get promoted, but Pioli just won't play them. And to be honest with Pioli's tactics, I think it will just make them worse. So it's like Abate is better than to be with Abate because Abate obviously is a better coach.
Dude,
Um,
even the Juve plays they play youth players.
Right.
So it's not really a
Oh,
talent thing, yeah, but it's a team mentality. It's the club's vision or whatever it is too.
okay. Other than the what Nathan, other than what you've mentioned about when we're in a clear lead, then you could say the pressure is off. But we don't have many of those moments. So, what do you think about the idea about having a very mixed up team, a good blend between the regulars and the Primavera against lower place teams? I asked this question to John and Shane quite a while back. I think Nico, you may be on that part. I did ask whether do we is our Primavera the best of our Primavera? Are they close to the capability or to handling a team in the lower ranks, maybe in the relegation zone, because those you could say are at risk of being Serie B teams. So, what is your opinion on that?
I don't I don't care if it's against lower ranked teams or not. Barcelona put Fati at like 16 years old against Real Madrid in an El Clasico game. What game is higher than that? So to me, these ages are just massive excuses. Like if you're skilled, you can play. Zeroli right now is killing it with the U team for both club and country. What's the excuse? We played without a CDM while L2 was just doing nothing. He's a proper CDM for both club and country. So these guys should be playing. They are more than capable of playing, especially with the players that we have.
All right, Nico, what are your thoughts about that blend?
I feel the same way. You know, if you're gifted, regardless of your age, if you're ready to play, you should be playing, and that's that. I mean, if you're there's no reason not to be playing because what's the other option? You don't play, and then what? We're gonna sell these players off to other teams, and just keep buying other players, keep purchasing players from other clubs at high prices. I mean, it's the whole reason. I mean, if you're talking about Moneyball, right, and saving money and being smart about your purchases, why not promote these kids? They don't cost anything.
But what do we
You
end
already
up
know
with? Serie B, loan with option. That's the route for our Primavera. It's a bit
loan with
sad.
option. Well, I said it too for certain players if they're not going to be given a chance. If there's no, so the B team where there's discussion about putting a B team together, correct?
Yeah.
All right, which Juve does. They have that. What's that? They have Juve's in it, I believe. They have that a
In
B
Serie C,
team
yeah.
for yeah, seriously. Um, but one thing that I'm a little bit not critical, I'm a little worried about is supposedly Ibra is willing. He was talking about bringing in the LA Galaxy's director in to run the B team. And if you look at his record for the last 8-9 years, the Galaxy were they were a top team in MLS for a while, right? They were one of the best run clubs in MLS. But in the last 8 years, under his direction, under his leadership, I forget the guy's name, they've been one of the worst teams for 8 years running. So you want to bring in a guy with a losing track record to run the B team, just because him were buddies when Ibra was at LA, just because you know the guy. I mean,
Guess what? He
I mean,
must be
what are we
cheap.
doing? Cheap is like, but we imagine you interviewing for a position as a sales rep, for example. Just put it there, and you've had 8 years without selling.
Sign them. Sign them
But
up.
are you gonna get that job? as a lead sales rep at a pharmaceutical company or whatever the case is. And the same thing that this guy's got 8 years of losing, a track record of 8 years in a row losing. The club is they've turned for the worst, and you want to bring him in to run the Serie B team, to be competitive. It just, and, everything else that's happening with the club, with it just, it just rubs me the wrong way. So I'd rather, and I've said it before, for Kamada, we haven't signed him to a pro contract yet, correct? And I said this in the last podcast, and I'll say it again. I know there's going to be fans out there that are not going to agree with this. They might be upset with this. But we got to do what's best for the kid. If he wants to go play in some another club, in another country, he's going to get a chance to play in the first team, be successful, develop. Even the other guys, the Rolly too, for example. Let him go.
Yeah, if Pioli's not willing to give them chances, I'd rather them go play. Christian, he's in the group chat with me. Forza Soccer. Yeah, and if they're not willing to give them chances, then let them go elsewhere. Like I think Pafundi is playing in like the Swiss league, and like he's on a team that's in first place right now. He's playing first team football, and they're first in the league. Like that is huge for development. So don't just keep these kids playing with kids forever. Like Camarda is, by the time he gets to play first team football, Endrick is going to have 6+ years of first team football over him. Like, and then we wonder why these players don't develop the way we want them to. Well, I mean, these guys have been playing first team since they were 16. Now they're 24, and of course they look miles better than what we produce in Italy.
Yeah, I think good takes. Yeah, just a bit of a time check. I think we've had a good discussion today.
So quick thing, I see that
Yeah.
it was Christian put something in the chat about a Real Madrid player.
I think he referred to Jimenez. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimenez. Yeah, so that's actually, I like Jimenez. That would be a good option as that for Theo in the long term. The kids, I mean, I like the
If we
fact
decide
that
to,
it
yeah, he just might not renew. This is the problem.
yeah, I mean, he does look a little bit like Salamakers with that cut, but the kid's, he's got some skill. He has potential.
All right. Well, yeah, I think just to really wrap it up, thanks to both of you for being here on the pod. For those and thanks to those who are listening, catching us on YouTube, also on Twitter, and for those who might be tuning in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. You'll find us also on our socials, not only for Milanistas 360, but also do follow our Defensive Dynamo podcast on Instagram as well as the other socials. Nathan, I'm not so sure if you have any football-related socials or even Twitter or X, as you call it now. But yeah,
I
for
just
those
join others and cause havoc. That's all.
Thanks again, Nathan. And yeah, to everyone else out there, Forza Milan always, and we'll have another great episode for everyone next week, same time. Forza Milan, everyone.
Forza Milan.
Italia!